Thanks, Fiona. Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. BBC research finds councils in our region are planning almost £300 million of cuts in the next 6 months. We'll take a look at what it means for services. In Bradford, some residents will now have to pay to park outside their own home.
I think it's disgusting. We already pay enough road tax, council tax and everything else. Why should we have to pay to park outside our own houses? It's just not fair.
We'll take a look at the situation right across our region. Also tonight, a year since Storm Babette, residents in Retford tell us they're unhappy they're still waiting for news on flood defences. And a 70-year-old tennis club in Sheffield celebrates its survival thanks to a major community fundraising effort.
Well, what a beautiful start to the working week. This was the view towards Castle Hill this morning. I'm not so sure we'll be that lucky tomorrow, but don't forget to join me for that detailed week ahead forecast.
Hello there, thank you for joining us for the first Look North of the week. First tonight, councils across our region are planning to make almost £300 million of cuts by March next year. That's 7% of their total spending. Tonight, we're going to look at what this means for services that we rely on and how it could affect our bills. But first, our political editor, James Vincent, explains how councils spend our money.
For over a decade, our councils have been trying to get more out of every one of these. They get their money from us through council tax, business rates and grants from the government. Then they've got to decide how to spend it all. The money they got from Westminster went down by 40% between 2010 and 2020. The budgets that they've got to work with have been getting smaller, and the pressures are getting greater. The stuff they've got to fund is taking more and more of their coins. Let's take Kirklees. For every pound that they spend, 43p goes on education, 24 pence goes on adult social care, and 12p goes on protecting children. That's 79p out of every pound in their budget gone straight away. There aren't that many more pennies to fund everything else. Thousands of staff have gone, services have been cut. No one's sure when the headlines about councils running out of money will stop.
Well, one way councils are trying to deal with their financial difficulties is to raise money through car parking charges. In Bradford, free parking near local shops has been scrapped and some residents now have to pay to park outside their own home. Aisha Iqbal has the details.
Parking fees, a necessary part of life, but they're driving motorists in Bradford mad. New charges have been introduced across the district, and for businesses in town and village shopping centres in particular, it's already proving to be a problem.
We have seen almost a 40% decline in customers, not just us in here, but across the whole village. Some people have been closing early because they haven't had anybody in the village. It's had a really big effect, and especially on the elderly. People say it's only £1 an hour, but it adds up when people come in every day, and the elderly do come in every day because they just get what they need for that day.
Bradford Council's financial situation is a precarious one. In fact, just earlier this year, they had to be saved from the edge of bankruptcy by an effective government bailout, a special agreement that they came to with ministers. Now, 87% of Bradford's total income is spent on running children's services and adult services. Just 13% goes on running essential services. They do need to claw back money somehow. One way of doing that is by putting up car parking charges.
100% get it, but they could have gone about it a different way. I feel like they're penalising the people that are trying to do the right thing, to trying to earn a living, when they could penalise the people that break the rules. I have trade all year round, but the Christmas trade makes up for the quieter month. There's a concern that it's not going to make up for that, and every month is going to be quieter because of the car parking. People don't want to pay it because they don't want to pay a pound. People don't want to pay it because they don't want to give the council their money.
Over in Bingley, there's further anger at new annual fees for residents and visitors permits, which were free up to now. Health and carers permits have also gone up in price.
I think it's disgusting. We already pay enough road tax, council tax and everything else. Why should we have to pay to park outside our own houses? It's just not fair.
I'm sure there is waste and efficiencies which the council could find, and I think they must stop treating places like Bingley and the surrounding villages as a cash cow.
Bradford Council announced £40 million of cuts and savings earlier in the year, and several services like recycling centres have already been closed or slimmed down. The higher parking charges will bring in around £2.7 million into the council's coffers over the next 2 years, but it's just a fraction of its overall budget gap. The question from these and other council taxpayers is, when will it all stop? Aisha Iqbal, BBC Look North, Bradford.
Bradford Council says it understands the concerns people have on these proposals, but given the financial situation at local authorities right across the country, they're having to consider many difficult decisions. So let's look a bit more at the picture across our region. David Rhodes is here with the details.
Here we are again, Amy. Every year for the past decade, our councils have been cutting budgets, which means less support for the most vulnerable and all of us paying more council tax. By March next year, a further £295 million needs to be saved across our region by our 11 major councils. So in town halls, plans have been discussed to cut costs and find new ways to increase income. In North Yorkshire, councillors have been told reviewing winter gritting routes could save the authority £200,000, whilst in Barnsley there are plans to increase the cost of burial and cremation fees by 7.5%, which could bring in £170,000. And in Leeds, increasing the cost of school meals and reviewing how schools are cleaned are part of a package that might save the council £160,000. The council leader says the cost of looking after the most vulnerable in the city continues to rise rapidly.
Those services like social care, where we're spending nearly £40 million a year more than we were only 5 years ago, that's been at a time where our income from the government has fallen and our council tax has gone up a little bit every year, but nowhere near enough to cover the number of people we need to look after.
As Councillor Lewis points out, central government funding has been cut to our councils in recent years. A decade ago, 11 of our major authorities received £1.6 billion a year. The last Conservative government cut budgets pretty much for the past decade, only increasing them slightly in recent years when our authorities got a total of £1.3 billion. But there is a new Labour government, so a council's going to get more money. Here's the new Chancellor and Leeds MP, Rachel Reeves.
On local government, we've committed to longer term settlements so that local authorities, council leaders can plan better for the future and know what resource is going to be available. We want to be able to ensure that our public services, all of our public services, we can be proud of once again, but we're not going to be able to fix overnight all of the damage that the previous government created.
So if there's no extra money coming from central government, we as taxpayers are likely to be asked to pay more in council tax. The average Bandine property in Yorkshire was charged £1,800 on their council tax bill this year. If you live in a different band, you pay less or more than this amount. Most authorities have increased council tax bills by 5% on a yearly basis recently, which means next year a Band D property in Yorkshire will likely see tax bills increase by around £90. In short, more money is going to be asked of taxpayers at a time when councils are going to provide fewer services. Amy.
Lots of things to consider there. Thanks, Dave. You're watching Monday's Look North. Still to come on tonight's programme. Guiseley joined the Football League clubs in the hat for the first round of the FA Cup. We'll be at Bradford's Valley Parade, which is hosting the draw tonight. But before that, an inquest in Wakefield has heard how a man accused of killing a rugby player was consumed with guilt before his death while awaiting trial in prison. Lee Robinson had been charged with murdering Jack Kermond, who played for Charleston Rovers. Mr Kermond died after an assault in 2022. Abigiola has more.
Mr Robinson died in his cell at Leeds Prison in December 2022. It was his 39th birthday. He was on remand charged with murdering Jack Kermond. Jack had played for Charleston Rovers and was the brother of Super League player Danny Kermond. Now, Mr Robinson had denied murdering Jack, who died after allegedly being punched at a party. But the inquest was told that Mr Robinson had wanted to plead guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter so he could take responsibility for Jack's death. Mr Robinson's mother gave evidence at the inquest. She said that her son had had a history of mental health problems and was absolutely devastated by what had happened. She said he was anxious about appearing in court and facing the victim's family. Mr Robinson had hoped the charges would be lowered at a court hearing shortly before his death, but that hearing was adjourned because a court report was outstanding. The Crown Prosecution Service have been contacted for comment. The inquest will continue tomorrow. It's been heard in front of a jury because Mr Robinson died in prison. Abby Jayola, BBC Look North, Wakefield.
Let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom now. A man has admitted sharing an offensive online message which seemingly mocked the death of a football fan who died at a Sheffield Wednesday game. West Brom supporter Mark Townsend died after suffering a medical episode at Hillsborough in September. 55-year-old Richard Crisp today admitted sending communication of an indecent or offensive nature. He posted a message on X, formerly Twitter, linking the death with the Hillsborough Stadium tragedy which killed 97 people. Police are appealing for information after a teenager was shot and stabbed in Leeds. The 16-year-old boy was found seriously injured on Cambrian Terrace in Holbeck on Sunday and was later treated in hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. West Yorkshire Police have launched an investigation and are asking for anyone with any information to contact 101. Work is now underway to repair a bridge that was damaged in a bus crash near North Yorkshire. Gromont Bridge closed in August after a bus smashed through its wall and fell 30 feet into a river. 5 people were rescued, but thankfully there were no serious injuries. The bridge is due to reopen at the end of this month. Now take a look at this. It's a year ago since Storm Babette brought misery to thousands of people in our region. After the wettest 18 months on record, residents in Retford are unhappy that they're still waiting for news on flood defences. Their new MP claims they keep missing out because it isn't a large urban area. The Environment Agency says it has to be a slow process to ensure any new defences don't make the problem worse elsewhere. Tom Ingle has more.
At 3:30 in the morning, I am wading through 8 inches of water out of my house, passing our belongings on a chain through coppers and fire brigade and anybody else that would help.
It might be a year ago, but it's still raw for Gary and his wife. The water flooded his house, climbing the height of these stairs and leaving them 8 inches deep, just like others on Darrell Road in Retford.
Just utter despair. We're constantly watching the weather all the time. It's just, that's all we seem to do.
Even the then Environment Secretary came to see the damage.
I have to fork out and I have to do all the hard work. We have to do all the hard work because that is us. It's all on us. We want it all on you now. You've got to do it. You deal with it.
A year on, the government has changed, and for the local MP, the campaign for flood defences for these houses continues.
I was here last year. These people have PTSD. Every time it rains, they are frightened it's going to happen again, and so it's repeat, repeat, repeat. But the biggest problem for areas like this, and this is what I need to tackle, is that time and time again they get left out when there's funding calculations made. It's always the larger urban areas, the more expensive properties that get the flood resilience schemes. People like here get left out every time. And I want to work with other MPs in areas like mine so that we can get the funding that we need to get the schemes here.
Behind this field is the River Idle. When it floods, it threatens the houses. There is a new local flood action group comprised of residents and farmers, and their aim is to keep the pressure on authorities to come up with some sort of long-term solution.
These things do take a lot of time. There's a huge amount of planning that needs to go into any flood defence works. It's really important that the works that we do don't cause flooding for somebody else further downstream or upstream. So it does take some time, and I can appreciate the frustrations because it is a slow process. You know, the main hurdle of securing that funding has been done, and so the planning work is now progressing.
The amount it got in was roughly about 8 inches. These are oak doors, and we decided to keep them. A friend of ours says it's patina. I like to say it's a war wound.
Recently, residents met with agencies and politicians. But for Gary, this is a waiting game. What comes first, help or the next flood? Tom Ingle, BBC Look North, Retford.
And we'll keep going back to those communities affected by the flooding. OK, time for sport now. Here's Mark.
Hi, Amy. Yes, so we're going to start with golf. And Yorkshire's Dan Bradbury has won the Open de France at Le Golf National.
Well, the goal this week was to make the cut, so I don't have to go to Korea and keep my card, to be honest with you. So, yeah, to hear that sounds pretty good. I guess I'll be looking at flights to Dubai then.
Football now, and Bradford City are into the League Two playoff positions following victory at Tranmere Rovers. And it was that man again, Andy Cook, who hit both goals for the Bantams against his old club. He scored midway through the first and second halves. Cook has now rustled up 7 goals so far this season. Harrogate Town ended a run of 3 games without victory in all competitions by beating Newport County at home. Toby Sims capitalised when the Newport keeper let the ball slide past his hands 5 minutes before half-time. That was enough to win it for the Sulphurites, who are up to 14th in League Two. Now, the draw for the first round of the FA Cup will take place in Bradford tonight. It's being held at Valley Parade to celebrate Bradford's upcoming year as City of Culture. And you can watch the draw live on BBC Two tonight from 7 o'clock. Olivia Richwald is there.
Well, here we are at Valley Parade's 1911 suite. That year, of course, is the one and only time that Bradford City won the FA Cup. And if you come round over here, here is the real FA Cup. I never thought I'd get this close to it. The Cup, of course, was designed here in Bradford, and it's also less than 100 days to go until Bradford City of Culture is due to begin. These are some of the reasons why Valley Parade has been chosen to host the draw for the next round of the FA Cup. Now, this is the stage where there are 32 non-league sides remaining in the competition, and they're joined by 48 teams from Leagues 1 and 2. And that draw is due to take place in less than half an hour. And among those non-league sides still in it is Guiseley, who beat Kidderminster at the weekend. And just a minute ago, I was talking to the manager, Mark Bauer, and I asked him who he would like Guiseley to be drawn against.
From a personal point of view, I wouldn't mind coming out here. Bradford City would be my number one choice, but I think, probably mixed feelings really. One of the lowest ranked teams at home possibly to get through, or maybe one of those big boys like Birmingham, Bolton, Huddersfield, home or away. Those would be fantastic for us.
Well, pulling the balls out tonight live on BBC Two is Danny Webber and Stuart McCall. And a little earlier I spoke to Stuart and asked him what he thought was the magic of the FA Cup.
In years gone by, it was the most important cup competition. Obviously now the Champions League and things like that seems to have taken over, which is quite sad really. But no, because it's a giant killing, it's a chance for giant killing, isn't it? Especially at this early stage. And it's great to see smaller clubs go as far as they can and get some good revenue in, obviously. But it's just FA Cup. And if you're in my age, that's what you've been brought up with, and we love it.
You can watch the draw live at 7 o'clock on BBC Two from here at Valley Parade. There are at least 10 clubs left from this region in the competition.
Right, that's it, Amy. FA Cup first round draw on BBC One after us, but on BBC Two.
On BBC Two, yes.
Yeah,
so
one.
Basically, stay watching Look North or the BBC, just switch to Two.
You've got it.
Something like that. Clear as mud. Thank you, Mark. Now, I know Mark is a tennis fan, so he'll like this next story. Thorncliffe Tennis Club, it aims to make tennis accessible to all, but it used to look like this. Bit of a sorry sight, isn't it? Now, voila, thanks to lots of fundraising in the community, it has been saved and looks like this. Carla Fowler has been down to see them all in action.
Turning over an old leaf on brand new courts. Thorncliffe Tennis Club is back from the brink of closure. And today some of its members gathered to celebrate the continuation of a 70-year history.
On behalf of Thorncliffe Tennis Club, I now declare these courts open.
Back in spring, the courts were barely fit to play on. The club launched a desperate crowdfunding campaign which has raised £27,000 so far. This and the generosity of local businesses has made the difference between closing and playing on.
My company manufactures the paint here in Yorkshire, so we work all over the UK. But yeah, just doing a local project. We sometimes try and get involved with local councils, but we don't always get the positive feedback that we get from people like Karen. So yeah, really good to get involved in this.
Scott really has been a great help across this. He offered to paint the court surfaces if we were able to find a contractor that would do the rest of the resurfacing for it. The parish council have become involved. Tennis clubs from across Sheffield and Rotherham and other parts of South Yorkshire have contributed to the crowdfunding, which has been incredible. We've had charities, we've had churches, local businesses just down the road from the tennis club as well. Everyone really came together. The club members, everyone's put money in.
One of the only tennis clubs in northern Sheffield, Thorncliffe is a vital community asset. It only charges a few pounds a week membership so everyone can join in. And ages range from 5 to 92.
I think it's good because it's bouncier. I'm really good at it and I can hit the ball hard.
Marvellous game, yeah. You can play right up to 92, normal age, and yeah, I love it.
It feels good. The courts are really good, better than they were before, definitely.
There's still lots of work to do and funds to raise for a new clubhouse and lighting. The drive now is for new members to help smash the target. Carla Fowler, BBC Look North, Sheffield.
What fantastic courts, great job they've done there. Paul's back with us after his holiday. If you don't mind me saying, you don't look as well rested as you usually do after a holiday.
How cheeky. It may be something to do with the fact I've got a 12-month-old baby. It sort of changes a few things.
It's all changed. It's short-lived though, so enjoy it while it's here. Right, you're back with your Weatherview.
Well, I can do that if you want as well.
The Weatherview. Nigel Hepidstall has been in touch and he says he doesn't ever recall seeing as many sightings as the Northern Lights 50 years ago. Why are we seeing more of it? Is it the fact that it's more vivid through smartphones? Is it just some natural occurrence? Fill us in.
Well, we are at the peak of the 11-year solar cycle, so the sun is naturally much more energetic. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing more Northern Lights or the Aurora Borealis. But there's something else going on. I mean, in fact, I missed this last week being on holiday, but it was quite spectacular. It is all to do with smartphones because I wouldn't say this is a bit of a con job.
That's an amazing one.
Well, it is, but that is not what you see with the naked eye. A lot of these pictures seen on the screen do not look like this in real life, but these smartphones are so good these days and, photography lenses are so good that they're picking out much more colour and much more detail than the naked eye can see. I mean, I did an experiment the last time we had this. I saw on Twitter actually people saying they could see it in Leeds, so I stuck my head out of the bathroom window. I couldn't see anything, but I stuck my iPhone to the sky and voila, there were the Northern Lights. So they're not happening any more or any less than they used to do. It's just we've got more technology.
Interesting. Deb has also been in touch.
Yes.
Deb Charles. She sent us this picture, which I think probably is the same with the naked eye. You can correct us if not. This is a cloud that she took a picture of at Garrowby. Is that a rare one? Any idea what that is?
That
Looks like a cone.
Exceptionally rare. That's called a Kelvin-Helmholtz cloud. And basically the top of the cloud's been ripped off because the wind is much stronger than at the bottom of the cloud. So it is pretty rare. It's called wind shear. And it's a very rare cloud. And pilots run a mile from that because it shows there's a lot of instability in the atmosphere.
So, you do know what you're talking about, don't you, Paul?
Well, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? But some great questions, and if you've got any questions you want to send to me in the next few days, we do this every Monday. What a fantastic part of the programme, Amy. We answer your questions. It is for you, I know. So if you've got anything you want to send to me, you can point your camera to that QR code thing and send any observations, pictures, any questions, and we try and answer them on a Monday. So, beautiful day today. Let me show you a couple of pictures that you've sent in. That's Otley, Lower Wharfdale, a lot of fog in that valley bottom, but look at the sky, and that's set the scene for a beautiful day with sunshine. And that was Bolton Abbey in Upper Wharfdale. What is that, about 10-15 miles up the dale? And it's been absolutely stunning wherever you've been across our region. If you've got any pictures you want to send in to me, you can send them on X, on Instagram, or on the Weather Watcher website. So a very changeable week to come right across our region. Tomorrow, much more cloud around. Might be thick enough for the odd spot of drizzle. Otherwise, it's dry and it might brighten up later in the day. Wednesday, eastern areas warm and bright. In the west, we'll see rain later in the day. Very wet Wednesday night. But that leaves Thursday, much of Friday, fine with some sunshine. Now, you can see tonight's cloud is meandering up from the south. So all parts will be dry, but it will turn increasingly cloudy, not before we've had enough clear weather across North Yorkshire for a touch of ground frost. A bit of mistiness is possible, and certainly in the towns and cities we'll avoid any ground frost problems. But there's a hint. Vale of York, 1 Celsius. That is 34 Fahrenheit. Tomorrow's high water time, Scarborough 2:49, Bridlington 8 minutes past 3. So a bit of drizzle is possible, but essentially it's a dry but overcast day. The best chance of any brightness will be later in the afternoon, perhaps across South Yorkshire, Chesterfield, bit of brightness coming through, but I think further north, a lot of cloud, and it's going to feel chilly as a result. Temperatures coming in at around about 13 or 14 degrees. Wednesday, west-east split, eastern areas best, warm and bright, some rain in the west. Wet Wednesday night, fine Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Some rain to come on Sunday. That is the forecast, Amy.
Paul, thank you very much. It's nice to have you back.
It's nice to see you too.
We always miss you when you're not here.
Right.
Sometimes. That is it from us. Hannah Gray is here with the late news. But from all of us at the 6:30 team, have a good evening. Bye-bye for now.